Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Model Building and Retirement channel. My name is Ken. Today we're going to finally do the build on the 1965 Chevy Impala from Revell, the Foose Designs model. I chose not to go stock and I choose not to go Foose. I went Ken. Let's get right into it right after the intro. Okay, so this is going to be the build of the 1965 Chevy Impala by Revell, and this one happens to be the Foose Design release. This can be built either the chip Foose way or factory stock. I'm kind of going in between the two of them, so I'll show you where I'm at this point. Okay, so starting with the body, this has already been painted and foiled and cleared. And this was featured in my 4-part series on how to get a show car finish on your model kit. So it is it's complete, decaled, clear coated, foiled, the whole bit here. And so is the grill all detailed out, and that happened to be another one of the videos that I did. Okay, and then as far as all the rest of the parts, I pre-painted many of them, but I've not detailed them. So let's get right into the assembly parts of it. Alright, so I'm going to kick off with the engine. I've already pre-painted the engine Chevrolet red, and actually what I used is MCW bright red enamel. Okay, then I pre-painted some of the parts black, some parts come off the chrome tree. I obviously got to do some detail work here, so I'm going to start off by painting the transmission and the exhaust headers so that paint can start to dry, and I'm probably going to detail a little bit on the starter and the coil. So let's get right into it. Okay, so to paint the transmission and the exhaust headers, I'm going to use my acrylic paint brush tip pen and just carefully start painting the transmission and the exhaust headers. I love these pens. I know I said it on my last build. And then I'm told that AK Interactive has a set of these that are all automotive colors. You know, this was bought off the internet, and then Hobby Lobby has some like colored ones, but they're not exactly automotive colors. You know, sure, you can use the red and the silver and the black. So I'm going to look into those. It's just, it's made that kind of easy. Okay, so I've got the transmission all done there. Okay, cool. These exhaust manifolds have a texture to them as if they were cast, which is pretty cool. Nice little detail. All right, I'm going to finish detailing this stuff. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got all the little components detailed out and painted, so I'm going to get that gluing and be... Okay, so the engine assembled really well, other than the fact that I had lost my water pump somewhere along the way. Ended up finding it in my salt and pepper colored Berber carpet. I call it the Great Abyss because anything that falls under that carpet is to never be found again. I got lots of Ford and Mopar spare part engines, but I don't have any Chevy engines, so it held me back. It took me about an hour to find it, but it's in there. Okay, it looks good. Nice looking car. I'm going to just do a little panel lining to dress up that chrome a little bit. So easy. Just gotta love that stuff. Then I like to hit it around places like where gaskets would go, even on a new engine. Okay, well, it's a show car, so we're not going to get too dirty there, but okay, so engine is complete. We'll move on to the next step here, which is going to be some chassis work. All right, so the next step is the front chassis and ultimately the engine install. So I gathered up all the parts. Now you do have to be careful if you're wanting to do the Foose build or the factory build, because the front axle assembly and engine cradle is different, because the stock one is kind of straight ride height, and then the chip Foose one is obviously lowered. So you got to make sure you grab the right one of those. The instructions are very clear. They separate the two. So, all right, I'm going to get these parts glued together, detailed, and we'll come back and talk about it. All right, so we got the engine installed to the front of the chassis. Everything went well there. Front suspension all glued together and attached. There's not real good positive placement on that, so what you have to do is kind of line it up, glue one side, let that set, and then go and attach the other side. I think if you tried to glue and set all your location points at the same time, you'd have a little more difficulty, but it went together well. Okay, so the next step is going to be the underside of the chassis. We'll be doing I'll be painting the gas tank. I will be installing the exhaust and rear suspension. So I'm going to gather up all those parts and we'll be right back. Okay, so I've gathered up everything for the bottom side of the chassis and pre-painted everything. I'm going to get it all glued together, do any touch-up that's necessary, and we'll be back to talk about it. All right, progress continues on the 65 Impala. I got the rear suspension and rear axle all in place, exhaust installed. I drilled out the tips for the exhaust pipes too. Used like a 30 thousandths drill bit and then darkened it out on the inside. It all went really well. I was a little bit confused about the upper control arms. I didn't see these two slots in the chassis until after the fact, so I had them misplaced. I had to put them in after I put the axle in. It would have been easier up front beforehand. So everything looks really good here. So we're going to gather up interior parts, and that's our next step. Okay, so we're on to the interior next, and I'm going to do quite a bit of work on the interior. As you can see, I'm going to go with white upholstery and black carpet. Not going to flock or anything, but I did spray that with flat black. You're really not going to see that floor anyways by the time it's in the kit. So I used a semi-gloss white. Then I used a blue pearl with some clear, Createx clear, and a little blue pearl, and shot that over the seats. It's almost not noticeable at all. You certainly can't see it on camera, but I was hoping that that would pop a little bit to kind of live up to the exterior a little bit. Could do some detail on the side panels here. Get the chrome pan out and do a little chrome work. I'm going to do some bare metal foil work on there. There's plenty of room to do that. So I think I'm going to dress that up really nice. There's some decals for the gauges on the dashboard. So we're going to be able to detail out that dash really nice. Comes with a lens for the dashboard too, which is unusual. And we're certainly going to dress up that console. So let me get to work on this, and then I'll come back and explain exactly what I did. Okay, so got the interior detailed out. Nice decals with this kit too, and they really stick nice. You know, so you got your gauges. Plus there's a clear lens for that speedometer, which is really neat. It's the first time I've ever seen that. So I did bare metal foil on the glove box around the word Impala. Maltol pen around the chrome ring. Touched all the buttons with the pen. Detailed out the steering wheel. I think that one comes out pretty nice. Console. You know, this was from the chrome tree, but I Blackened out the interior of it, and then I just polished up the chrome on the outside, and there's also decals there for the clock and the SS emblem, so that detailed out really nice. All I got to do is hit the top of the shifter. I'm going to go with a white knob on that. Then on the door panels, bare metal foil around most of the trim, and then a little chrome pen where I couldn't get the foil. Came out pretty nice. Trim on the back seat. And even the front seats used bare metal foil on this chrome trim ring that goes around the entire seat. So usually I don't geek out on an interior unless it's a convertible or a door opens or something. But this one I got a little bit inspired, and you know, I thought I'd step up the game a little bit. So I'm going to just cut the roof off the car. I'm just kidding. Okay, so I'm going to glue all this together and we'll be right back. All right, the interior is fully glued and assembled. Very beautiful. That's a very nice looking detailed interior. Good old Revell, they usually do the job, man. They got some nice decals. Nice details and decals. I think she looks pretty good, so we move on to the next step, which I believe is glass. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're ready to install the taillights and the glass. Now you may notice I tinted my glass. I tinted the entire back window. And what I used is the Tamiya X19 Smoke. So it's along their clear paint line. And you spray this like a candy color, very light out of the gun, mix 50-50 with Mr. Color Leveling Thinner and several coats depending on how dark you want your tint to be. I'll do a video in the future here on how I do that. So I tinted the back window. On the front window, I tinted the top section, fogged it in a little bit. But I want to show you another, I'm going to call it a tip. There are different ways of going about this, but the rubber seal around your windows. Let me pause this for just a moment. Okay, I just pause that so I can get the glass into position. I've not glued that in or anything. I'm just pressing on it. Now what I do is I take a Sharpie, black Sharpie, and this is the ultra fine point. So it's got a very fine point on it. And what I'll do is I will just, let me get on frame here. You got to make sure you don't move your glass while you're doing this. But I'm just following the very edge inside of where I foiled. You got to be very careful not to move. And what that's doing is that's mimicking a rubber seal around your windshield trim. Pull that out for a second. So now you can see I have this little fine line there. And then what I'll do is I'll take a Sharpie, another Sharpie, a thicker one, and I will hit just the edges like it's beveled glass. Da-da-da. And if you make a mistake, like if you moved your glass or whatever, you could just take a little bit of alcohol and wipe that outside of the glass and start over. Okay, I'm gonna get another Sharpie. Using another Sharpie, I'm trying to get in my glass while you can be on camera. But what I'm essentially doing here is I'm just coloring, trying to stay outside the line of where that mark was just done. But there's people that mask off and spray to do all this. I've made big mistakes just masking too. Make sure I'm in frame. I'm sorry folks if I got out of frame. Okay, just marking that up with the Sharpie. Okay, so I just took the time under my magnifier here to kind of color outside my line, where I made my line. And I'm doing this on the outside of the glass, where I traced it. You can do it on the inside or the outside. Okay, so that's my way of doing it. Now, what I'm going to use now to glue my glass in is a very fine-tipped little paintbrush. And I'm going to use my Mod Podge gloss. You may use what you want, but this is a water-based glue sealer and finish. And it goes on white. It's a white glue, and it dries absolutely clear. And if you get it on your fingers or make a mistake with it, it's water-based and cleans up easy. Won't ruin your paint or anything like that. Now, there's other products out there. People use canopy glue and they use future floor polish. There's, you know, use what you want, but this is what I like to use. All right, so gonna get the car turned upside down, and I have a little towel here so I don't scratch my paint. Okay, so what I did off camera is I positioned that glass into place, and I used a little bit of tape. I use frog tape. I just cut thin strips of it. Tamiya tape will work too. Now you have to polish your glass a little bit after you've removed this, and you got to be very careful when you peel it back up that your glue is totally set, and also your bare metal foil doesn't peel up on you. So what you're going to want to do is be pressing against your glass when it comes time to be removing that tape. So now I'm just dipping into my Mod Podge with that little brush, and I'm just touching like the edges here. And just kind of pushing that paint into the seam. Now this glass doesn't have a lot of extra. I mean, other than it has the visors built into the top, which is good because that gives you plenty of room to glue there. So there I can actually lob my glue up a little bit and get it behind there. Not too close to where it'll be exposed to the windshield. Get that little press. So because it has those visors, that made it a little easier. But what I'm doing is I'm using my glass, I apologize. So I just get the paint and the paintbrush right on edges and kind of push in with my bristles up under the glass, but not so far as to reveal through the front of the windshield. I mean, it depends on the model kit. Some windshields have the front and back and glass and everything all in one piece. This one here, it's nice, it fits really nice, but it doesn't have a lot of area where you can glue without getting glue to show. So I'm just kind of pushing that glue forward a little bit like that to get barely under that glass, or plastic glass, plastic clear. All right, so I'm going to continue that on off camera, and then I'll do the back window, which is done the same way. All right, and on the back glass, it just sinks right into there very nice, so I'm not even going to tape it. Just going to hold it in place with my thumb. And same thing, I'm just taking my Mod Podge and brush, starting at the corners, getting some paint in there and kind of pushing it forward, but not so much that it bleeds all the way through to be exposed on the outside when it gets to where you don't want it. And worst case scenario, you can knock it out of there and it's water soluble, so you can clean up your mess and start over. And this stuff, it takes, I'd give it like 10 minutes or so when it dries clear. When it dries clear, you know you're safe. You can speed it up with a hairdryer if you're in a hurry. I try not to be in a hurry. Sometimes if I'm taping or video recording stuff, I may speed up footage a little bit, or speed up the process a little bit, because I don't know, it's a lot harder. If you haven't done a YouTube channel, it's a lot harder than you might think to videotape and set up the camera and make sure you're in frame and not make mistakes that embarrass you. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let this sit for about 15 minutes, and then I'll come back, and then I can actually seal around the rest of the glass just to make sure it will never come out. I'm also going to get the vent windows going. All right, so now I got my front windshield and back glass and quarter windows in, or wing windows, I guess, the front wings. Sure do miss those. Remember when cars had those? So got the tail lights in. And do a little detail on those with some chrome pen when the car's all finally done assembled. And painted the headliner white. Still pretty wet, but all right. So as this thing sits here and dries up and cures, I will move on to the chassis, where they want you to start working on the front radiator support on the engine compartment. Okay, the next couple steps call for the front radiator support to be added to the engine compartment with the radiator, battery, windshield washer, and hood latch. And then there'll be the radiator hoses, and also be the AC line. So I'll get all this glued together. We'll come back and I'll talk about if there was any issues, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so everything in the radiator support area went on really well. Installed the battery, windshield washer, hoses, one of the AC lines. I did notice that there's a little bit of a twist in my chassis. I had to clamp that radiator support on. It was off by quite a bit. Seems kind of flimsy up there. I'm hoping that that don't bite me when I go to marry everything together later. But it's a nice little detail too. Decal right here for the AC compressor and one for the battery. Just adds that little extra detail to the kit. It looks really nice. All right, so the next step is going to be assembling wheels and tires. All right, so it's time to assemble the wheels and tires. So I have one completed here. And I like to give the tread a little bit of a sanding to make it look like they were driven on at least a little bit. Because, you know, let's face it, even if you got brand new tires and put it into the parking lot, the tread's already going to have a little bit of wear on it just from driving across the parking lot. So I try to mimic that. The way I'm going to go about that, my preferred way, is using a drill. And here I have a 5/8 socket, which just fits that idea of that tire pretty good. Get that tire on my socket, attach to my drill, pull the trigger, and have some sandpaper. And just run it until I can see some uniform sanding on the tread. Doesn't take a lot. But there you go. You got some, you know, decent sanded tread there. Okay. And being that this is the Foose kit with the oversized wheels and low profile tires, these hubcaps basically fit inside the entire wheel. And then you just glue the backing plate right on there. So I'm going to get all 4 of these installed and put them on the car. We'll be right back. All right, wheels and tires went on really nice. They just snapped into place. Usually I glue them in, but these fit really nice and they're not wobbly or anything. And I did dress the wheels with a little bit of panel liner. Didn't go overboard, didn't do a whole lot dressing them up. I thought they looked pretty good as is. Still see a little twist in my chassis here, but it's kind of flimsy. We'll see if it gets better when we assemble. And we are now at that big step of attaching the interior of the chassis and the body all together. This is where it can go all right or all wrong for me. Usually something always bad happens here. I have ill-fitting parts and I end up breaking pieces off and having to re-glue and all that. So let's see what happens here. I did test fit this at one point. So the interior slides in. You just have to widen the body just a little bit. And it's got two little pins behind the glass back there for alignment. So you get that back there and onto those pins. So I'm not even gonna glue that. All right. See if I can get that chassis in there. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit in case I get out of frame. Spreading that body out a little bit to fit this in. No glue or anything at this point. We'll see if we need it. How about that? Okay. Maybe not okay. Here's that ill-fitting, warped front end. Oh, there we go. We just had to snap that in place. Okay, I still see I'm a little bit warped, so I'm gonna have to do some glue and clamping there. But actually that did go together pretty well. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna glue this corner where it just keeps separating here with some super glue, and we'll be back. Okay, so she's all completed. I got her on the 360 table so we can get a good look at her. It was a very nice kit. Fun to build. Everything went well. And for me, the final assembly usually has some pretty big problems of getting things to fit. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. There was a little bit of a twist on the chassis that I had to just kind of glue into place because it was just a little bit warped, but it's very flimsy, so it was easy to bend into place. And of course, the last couple details, windshield wipers are separately applied, mirrors and whatnot. Big fat fingers, and those little details are always a lot of fun, but I managed to pull it off. I think she reflects the paint really nice. I'm happy with that interior choice. That was a nice contrast, I think, that white interior. Now, as far as them calling this the Chip Foose Designs model, it's just a repop 65 Impala that included low profile tires, oversized wheels, which is, a Chip Foose thing. But other than that, there's nothing custom on the body itself that I could see. The engine had a little bit of a different dress-up kit, but I doubt if that's even what Chip Foose would have done. I think he would have done something much more custom than what you see here. All in all, though, a very fun kit. Let's get it over into the garage too, and we'll take a closer look at some of the other details. All right, so we got her in the garage. We'll just take a look at some of the close-up details of the model there. And it came with some nice decals too. The little flags on the front with the 427 emblem, all the script or decals. And I cleared over all those. They came out really, really pretty. Let's get a look at the engine. And she's got a pretty nice clean engine compartment there. Not overly done. I didn't do any wires or anything like that. But it does have, in-kit air conditioning and all the air conditioning lines, which kind of give it a little realistic look. I still need to get out there and order my pre-wired distributors, because that's the only thing really stopping me from doing my own is gluing those 9 little wires in the distributor. I just have difficulty with that, so I'm going to go ahead and buy the kits, and I think it'll be a lot easier to install. But very pretty engine compartment. Nice look into the interior there. I think that bare metal foil around the seat trim looked really nice, and those inner door panels with the bare metal foil looked really good. I'm not as good at free painting with chrome as I am the bare metal foil, so I thought that all came out pretty. I think the rear end on that's pretty nice and detailed too. It looks like the real car, in my opinion. I get Buzz over there checking the alignment on the rear bumper. I think it's on correctly. He's just verifying. Okay, then we got Tom over here double checking the torque on the lugs from the chipped Foose wheels. I think they're on tight enough, but you know, he's double checking me. Better safe than sorry. And just one final shot there with the light reflecting on that beautiful body lines. That metallic really reflects the light very nice on this model. Well, I think that's a wrap. Okay, so that's a wrap on the 1965 Impala from Revell, Foose Design's version. A lot of fun to build that. I had no major issues, even final assembly, which is usually where I have my biggest problem, I didn't. So I was very happy with this kit. Felt good to complete another kit. I'm falling a little bit behind on that, you know, trying to keep content going with the channel. And then, of course, it's finally nice in Ohio. You know, it's June. We've had some beautiful weather. I've been out doing a lot of yard work. I've been, you know, pruning trees. I've been out on the motorcycle every day. So coming down here in the basement on a beautiful summer day is getting pretty difficult. And I knew that was going to be the case. You know, my content's definitely going to increase come the colder winter months. But, you know, today's a rainy day. So there I was able to finish the model. So if you like my content, please hit subscribe, like, ring that little bell, and you'll be alerted to my upcoming videos. And it's absolutely free, costs you absolutely nothing. And I thank you all very much for helping my channel grow. Have a good day.